The Defense Intelligence Agency comments on the reality of astral projection. Alexander Light, Humans Are Free reports, the astral body appears in many different cultures throughout time and throughout the world. In Egypt, the Ka was not the soul of man, but its vehicle, according to Muldoon and Carrington 2011. In the Quran, Muhammad's astral body travels in the Isra and Miraj story, and among other sacred and secular texts, the astral body appears in Hindu scripture, Taoist practice, and even Christianity. In his article regarding the afterlife, Ulger 2014 notes that in such journeys in the world, religions, and innumerable tribal practices, scholars have described a common pattern of ascent, which is to say, an ecstatic, mystical, or out-of-body experience, wherein the spiritual traveler leaves the physical body and travels in his or her subtle body into higher realms. According to Daniel Miller, what is astral projection? According to Wikipedia, it's a term used in esotericism to describe a willful out-of-body experience, OBE, that assumes the existence of a soul or consciousness called an astral body that is separate from the physical body and capable of traveling outside it through the universe. This time, Wikipedia seems to have gotten it right. Astral projection falls in the realm of parapsychology, which includes ESP, telepathy, clairvoyance, psychokinesis, hypnosis, remote viewing, and more. And when it comes to these topics, all of them are interconnected and relate to the study of human consciousness and quantum physics. I've written multiple articles providing a number of sources showing how this phenomenon has been studied extensively and is used at the highest levels of government. I have also presented peer-reviewed research, some of which is linked within this article, that shows extremely significant results, which is also emphasized by the quote below. The reality of such things is no longer a myth or pseudoscience, but scientifically confirmed. A great place to start your research if interested in the Institute is the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Quote, for many years I've worked with researchers doing very careful work in parapsychology, including a year that I spent full-time working on a classified project for the United States government to see if we could use these abilities for intelligence gathering during the Cold War. At the end of that project, I wrote a report for Congress stating what I still think is true. The data in support of precognition and possibly other related phenomena are quite strong statistically and would be widely accepted if it pertained to something more mundane. Yet most scientists reject the possible reality of these abilities without ever looking at data. And on the other extreme, there are true believers who base their beliefs solely on anecdotes and personal experience. I have asked debunkers if there is any amount of data that would convince them, and they generally have responded by saying, probably not. I asked them what original research they have read, and they mostly admit that they haven't read any. Now there is a definition of pseudoscience basing conclusions on behalf rather than data. End quote. This is Professor Jessica Utz, Chair of the Statistics Department, UC Irvine, Dean Radin, Real Magic. Now the truth is, these concepts are very real and have been scientifically proven. The only thing that gets in the way are human belief systems. No matter how strong the evidence is, it won't be accepted by the collective or the scientific community simply because it's either unexplainable given our limited parameters or it's just too much for the mind to handle. These concepts can be too much of a shock, too much of a game changer, and too much of a paradigm shifter. These fields of study change everything we think we know about reality. And that being said, many concepts that don't fit into the accepted framework of reality have also been subjected to official campaigns of ridicule. This, in my opinion, is purposefully done. While governments around the world have been studying and using such phenomena for intelligence collection purposes, these same entities use their influence over entertainment, mainstream media, and academia to ridicule and debunk these topics. Thankfully, things are changing now, and the collective mind is opening up more and more every year. The introduction of new concepts and fields of study that challenge our reality have always received harsh backlash throughout human history. When it comes to astral projection, a decades-old document prepared by the US Army Office of the Surgeon General Medical Intelligence Office states, so this is credible statement, quote, according to Pullman, director of the Southeast Hypnosis Research Center in Dallas, Texas, before the end of the 1970s, Soviet diplomats will be able to sit in their foreign embassies and use ESP, in this case a form of the apport technique, to steal the secrets of their enemies. Pullman states that a spy would be hypnotized, then his invisible spirit, quote-unquote, would be ordered to leave his body, travel across barriers of space, and tie to a foreign government security facility, and there read top-secret documents and relay back their information. Such astral projection already has been accomplished in laboratory settings, end quote. This is astonishing, don't you think? These are fascinating claims, and we've seen confirmed results of related phenomena like Jupiter source. Not many people know this, but Stargate remote viewer Ingo Swann was the one who discovered the rings around Jupiter. Another document of the Defense Intelligence Agency dated in 1975 states that 2 Soviet scientists had, quote, reported that the Soviets were studying out-of-body phenomena in yogis. No details of the research were given. In 1973, the U.S. newspaper National Enquirer reported that the Soviets had accomplished astral projection in the laboratory and cited the opinion of a U.S. researcher that the technique would be in use for espionage before the end of the 1970s. And once again, no details of the Soviet work were furnished, end quote. The Defense Intelligence Agency concluded in 1972 that this tactic and other related abilities were used by the Soviets to discover the contents of top-secret U.S. documents, the movements of their troops and ships, and the location of their military installations. And there's links here to the source. This is interesting because after the U.S. government declassified the Stargate program, they revealed that this is exactly what the U.S. was doing to the Russians. Another document goes on to emphasize that they, the Russians, could also be using these techniques to influence key U.S. military personnel and other leaders from a distance, cause instant death of any U.S. official from a distance, and or disable U.S. military equipment from a distance, including spacecrafts. It's safe to assume that the U.S. military was also using these tactics for similar purposes. Who knows how far this field of study has come since these documents were first drafted? In all likelihood, the literature that has been declassified is not even the tip of the iceberg. Based on my research into Black Budget World, this would not really be surprising. And then there are documents like this one proving that the U.S. has done the same thing as the Soviets successfully. And see the document here, Top Secret Astral Projection Chapter 3, 8th of August 1973, telephone call from, that's blanked out, subject volunteered to attempt to locate a facility in the USSR comparable to the underground installation previously described, found it, gave its exact coordination. Subject described external features including helicopter pads, rail spur, and some miles away, 30 to 40 miles, large dish antennas. Subject said the antennas were used for the interception downlink telemetry from U.S. satellites, also for receiving downlink from Soviet satellites. The CIA found such a facility at the coordination given by the subject. Photos show large dish antennas. The number of antennas was different from that counted by subject, and their dimensions were slightly different. In a double-blind experiment, subject was fed the coordinates of a small Soviet-occupied island in the Indian Ocean. The island did not show on the map used by the experimenters. In fact, the latter assumed the subject was being targeted against open ocean as a test. Subject began drawing a large-scale map of the island. Following its periphery, he soon ran off his... Okay, then it stopped. That was top secret. I just read that document to you. If you can't read the last part, it states, sheet of paper continued on another sheet and continued this process until several separate sheets had been filled in and subject had returned to his starting point. When the pages were joined together, the result was an exact match and an absolutely accurate topographical map of the island. Subject also described exactly what was going on the island, end quote. The subject mentioned in the above document is Pat Price. I previously wrote an article about Pat Price and their relationship and discovery of extraterrestrial beings, something that is very common among the Stargate remote viewers. and you can read the article below. The thing is, these were all remote viewers, not astral projectors. Remote viewing is the ability to describe remote locations, regardless of distance, through some type of perception channel that possibly exists within the brain. You are not actually flying outside your body using another spirit body like astral projection. Although these two fields of study are similar in nature, it's important to note that they are different. Now, what does this mean for humanity and human consciousness? Nikola Tesla said, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous century of its existence." Is humanity ready for this type of information? Parapsychology represents the next step for science, quote unquote, as it correlates to quantum physics. It's one of the many ways we can confirm the metaphysical world and supernormal human capacities that have existed for centuries and have been studied all over the world. The only problem is that today it's being weaponized and used for motives that are not beneficial to humanity as a whole. This is odd because these abilities really show us another way in which we are all connected, that we are all one. Humanity has a poor track record of using our technological advances and discoveries for ulterior motives, benefiting only military and governments. We need to start being transparent about these fields of study so we can further advance civilization as a whole, not only the elite groups of society. So I ask again, is humanity really ready for this stuff? Well, it seems that many more people are becoming aware of parapsychological phenomena and are beginning to use it to better themselves. Mind-body healing techniques are one example, and healing at a distance is another. The more people work on cultivating their inner peace, the better our planet will be. Change starts from within, and these abilities go hand in hand with human impact. Hate, war, violence, etc. are not the best way to use these abilities. So the takeaway, the conclusion, there's a lot of good we can do with these capabilities, and I believe that there are a lot of good people on Earth who would never use them to cause harm. Imagine an entire planet full of people who would never cause harm to anybody else. I believe this is our human nature, and that we are all born with a moral compass, but that does not mean that we are not capable of corruption. Some have lost touch with that moral compass, and there are several reasons for that. Service to others goes hand in hand with these types of abilities. However, as much as they can progress the human race and our overall understanding of reality, they can also be used for ulterior motives. When the human race is ready, I believe that all of these techniques and understandings will play integral roles in our society, and I really agree with that. It's by Arjun Walia from Collective Evolution, and it's on Humans Are Free. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.